Namaste, and welcome to our continuing series on the life divine with our beloved Ranga. We are on page 509, and the chapter is The Knowledge and the Ignorance. Beginning with the sentence, our view of the ultimate reality. Well, we have a little synopsis of the past paragraph.
He has told us, Sri Aurobindo has told us, that in the Vedic view, the words used for the knowledge and the ignorance were Vidya and Avidya. And he has defined them as Vidya is the knowing, the knowledge of the one, and the other one is the knowledge of the many. They are not opposites. They are just, it's a nomenclature which says that if you are seeing the one, you are in knowledge. There is no question of ignorance or anything. And if you are seeing the many, you are in avidya. Don't interpret vidya and avidya as ignorance and knowledge. Then he says that when the later Vedanta is, first of all, the Upanishads, they had to give verbal form to experiences. So naturally there is a slight drop. When you try to explain something and words are inadequate, there is automatically a drop in what you are trying to say from what you have seen. You will see mother's writings constantly she is saying that.
Yes.
That when I am speaking, the whole thing is gone, she says. So the first descent from the Vedic knowledge was the Upanishadic knowledge. Then from the Upanishads, you come down to later Vedanta. Shankara very introduced the word Maya. So I'll read out the summary of what he said earlier, it will be very clear. Okay? We have then a transition from the Vedic terms, chitti, consciousness of truth, achitti, unconsciousness of truth, unawareness of truth, to the Vedantic terms. We descend to the Vedantic terms, vidya, knowledge of the one, avidya, knowledge of the many. I attributed one and many to Vedic also, but he has used a slightly different way. Okay? Consciousness of truth. And here, knowledge of the one and avidya, knowledge of the many. But once the words vidya and avidya have been used, meaning knowledge and ignorance, the downward sliding of meaning from the first to the last is inevitable. It's like putting your foot in a very fast flowing river. You will be pulled off to the end. So once you change the words and use other words, you have to logically go to the end. And what is the end? This is falsehood, that is truth. The two can never be one. That's what I am going to read. But once the words vidya and avidya have been used, meaning knowledge and ignorance, the downward sliding of meaning from the first to the last is inevitable. The pure nomenclature has now begun to be interpreted verbally. Achitti, knowledge of the many, ignorance. Avidya, from mere unawareness of the truth, has now positively the opposite, a creator of unrealities, falsehoods and illusions, even if temporarily valid. Note that. The later Vedanta completed the natural and logical change of meaning. It amounted to this: knowledge is that of the one, the truth. Ignorance is the creation of the many unrealities, illusions, falsehoods. So you can see that the meaning has changed. So the final conclusion then is this: the one can never become the many can never become the one. Total separation altogether. If you want the divine at all, you have to go there. But there is a slight variation, and Sri Aurobindo gives a different meaning to Shankara's philosophy. He says that Shankara's philosophy is very complex. The world is not total unreality. it is a semi-reality, it's a reality in time and space. Now you can see that something which is eternally the same is definitely superior to that which is the same in time and space. It disappears.
Transient.
Transient in time and space. So this is what he has said. Okay? Spirit and matter have nothing in common and are eternally opposites. Purusha and Prakriti are eternally fundamental separate principles. When man is in the consciousness of the many, he is ignorant, living in illusions and falsehoods. When man is in the consciousness of the one, he is in the truth. This is the final conclusion, which was not there in the Vedic period. In the Vedic period, just a name, Achitti Chitti. You are aware of the one. Nothing else is being discussed.
But Sri Aurobindo doesn't tell us that matter is without the divine, because everything is the divine.
Exactly. So he has gone one step beyond Shankara.
Yes, yes.
He has gone back actually to the Vedic period, but he has gone one step ahead. Because he says that it is possible to bring the divine here.
Yes.
The Mayavadins and the Buddhists are saying no. You want the divine, go there, not here. Okay? So that's what we read in the previous para. Now we read our para today. Our view, Sri Aurobindo view, of the ultimate reality and of the true nature of Maya has compelled us to depart from these later fine excesses of the dialectical intellect and return to the original Vedantic conception. So, in other words, there is no fundamental difference between the two. There is only a gradation. Okay? While giving every tribute to the magnificent fearlessness of these extreme conclusions, to the uncompromising logical force and equity of these speculations, inexpugnable so long as the premises are granted, admitting the truth of the two main contentions, the sole reality of the Brahman and the fact that our normal conceptions about ourselves and world existence are stamped with ignorance, are imperfect, are misleading, we are obliged to withdraw from the hold so powerfully laid by the conception of Maya on the intelligence. In other words, I don't agree with the Mayavada theory, which says that the divine is up there, one, perfect, static, and the world is not the divine, it's the opposite. I withdraw from that the hold of so powerful a concept of Maya. He said that Maya is very, very powerful, because the first experience, even Sri Aurobindo had the first experience, the world is unreal. It's only a shadow play of forms, and that also transient forms.
Yes.
But the obsession of this long established view of things cannot be removed altogether so long as we do not fathom the true nature of the ignorance and the true and total nature of the knowledge. Throughout Life Divine, you will see that truth and falsehood are never totally different from each other. There is always a gradation, it's very subtle. So that's what he's saying here, that the obsession which is long established, this obsession mainly in India, Maya, oh this is Maya. And Maya has got several meanings. Maya, finally it becomes illusion, magic. That which is unreal seems to be real. How come? Okay, so he says it's very difficult to get away from that, and I can get away only if I analyze and find out the true nature of consciousness. So let's start looking and examining what consciousness is. So in the next chapter he goes on to what are the characteristics of consciousness? Memory, imagination. So we'll look at all these things. we'll look at memory, we'll look at imagination, we'll look at any other power that consciousness seems to have. So that's this whole chapter, the following chapters are an examination of consciousness, nature of consciousness. Particularly the imagination and what's the first one I said?
Consciousness.
Eh?
Consciousness.
Yeah, I know. Consciousness has got these two, imagination and
Memory.
memory. Very interesting discussions. What is memory actually? Okay, so we are obliged to withdraw from the hold so powerfully laid by this conception of Maya on the intelligence. But the obsession of this long established view of things cannot be removed altogether so long as we do not fathom the true nature of the ignorance and the true and total nature of the knowledge. In other words, consciousness. For if these two are independent, equal and original powers of the consciousness, then the possibility of a cosmic illusion pursues us. If ignorance is the very character of cosmic existence, then our experience of the universe, if not the universe itself, becomes illusory. So now, this is what he is saying. If ignorance is the very character of cosmic existence, in other words, if the world is permanently in ignorance, there is no possibility of change. That's what is meaning. Okay, so if ignorance is the very character of cosmic existence, then our experience of the universe, if not the universe itself, okay, maybe the universe is real, but my experience of it is unreal. Okay, so he is making a difference between the two. If not the universe itself, becomes illusory. Or if ignorance is not the very grain of our natural being, but still an original and eternal power of consciousness, then while there can be a truth of the cosmos, it may be impossible for a being in the universe, while he is in it, to know its truth. So, did you get the gradations? First of all, is the universe, even if it is real, I can never know the truth because I am plunged in ignorance. Necessarily, I cannot see the truth here. I have to go there. But he is saying, if ignorance is not the very grain of our natural being, if ignorance is not permanent here, I can change it. That's what he means. He is examining two things. If the world is permanently imperfect, then it's impossible, I have to go there to see the divine. But if the cosmos is not permanently imperfect and there is an evolution, things are different. Yeah. That's exactly what he is saying. Okay, so. Or note also interestingly that at that time the concept of evolution was not very clearly and in detail, it wasn't discussed. In India, in the West it was not even there. It was discovered only by Charles Darwin. But in India the conception of the evolution was there in the Dashavatar. Okay? But it is implied. The basic idea is there that there is a growth of consciousness, ending with the avatars, Rama, Buddha, Krishna and finally the Kalki. So the idea was there, but it never detailed discussed ever. Whereas Sri Aurobindo has discussed evolution in great detail, how it comes from one level to another level, what is the transition, how it comes. It's a great discussion which comes later on. So, or if ignorance is not the very grain of our natural being, he is using words which are a little, so I am making it very simple. When I use the word permanent, it becomes very clear. The world is permanently imperfect, it can never have perfection, one view. In that case, I have to go there. But if the world is not permanently but temporarily depending upon the one who is seeing the universe, his consciousness is seeing, but that can be changed, things take a different turn. Okay? So, or if ignorance is not the very grain of our natural being, but still Note the word natural being, not the soul, but the natural being, your body, mind, life. That which belongs to nature. But still, an original and eternal power of consciousness, then, while there can be a truth of cosmos, it may be impossible for a being in the universe, while he is in it, to know its truth. He can only arrive at real knowledge by passing beyond mind and thought. Matter, life, mind, you have to go beyond mind. Beyond this world formation and viewing all things from above in some supra-cosmic or super-cosmic consciousness, like those who have become of one nature with the eternal and dwell in him, unborn in the creation and unafflicted by the cataclysmic destruction of the worlds below them. So, see, such a long sentence. So, I have to go back again and read. Okay. So, this much was clear, isn't it? So, if ignorance is not the very grain of our natural being, still an original and eternal power of consciousness, then, while there can be a truth of cosmos, it may be impossible for a being in the universe, while he is in it, to know its truth. World is real. I don't have the capacity to see the reality. Permanently. I am permanently deficient of knowledge of the capacity to see the universe. Then I have to go there. So, then he says, you have to go beyond, to know its truth. He can only arrive at real knowledge by passing beyond mind and thought, beyond the world formation. Which is the world formation? Matter, life, mind. Above the mind is not world formation. Level 1, okay, you must be clear about it. World formation. And viewing all things from above in some supracosmic or supercosmic consciousness. What will be the difference between supracosmic and supercosmic? Supracosmic, upper layers of the cosmos, supracosmic, and the other one is supercosmic, extracosmic. He uses the word extracosmic, outside the universe, transcendental. So, three levels are there. Level 1, body, mind, life, matter, life, mind, ignorance. Level 2, the spiritual planes of consciousness, which are supracosmic. The cosmos is world, life, the cosmos is matter, life, mind. Above that is supracosmic, above the cosmos, okay, or supercosmic consciousness, even outside that. Like those who have become of one nature with the eternal and dwell in him. He is referring to beings, souls who live permanently in the spiritual planes of consciousness. We don't have an idea like that, but just as the world, the animal world is populated by animals, the mental world is populated by human beings. These supracosmic planes also are all inhabited by beings. We don't think of it that way, but that's the truth. There are grades. In the mental world, in the West you call them angels. In India, we call them Gandharvas, semi-divine creatures. And Kinnaras, Gandharvas. Then you go to the higher planes of consciousness, you go to the overmind consciousness, you have the gods who are living there. They are divine beings. Not full divine, but so this is gradation there. So that's what it's referring to. In some sort, like those who have become of one nature with the eternal and dwell in him, unborn in the creation and unafflicted by the cataclysmic destruction of the worlds below them.
Do they have the possibility of birth?
They have the choice.
They have a choice, yeah.
They have a choice. Note that Shelley came down, he was a non-evolutionary being, but he chose to come down. Shelley, the poet Shelley.
Yes.
Here you can choose to come down if you want. In fact, if you can't come down, you can't choose to come down, then whole Swaramdos's theory and avatarhood stands cancelled. How can it be? So you have a choice. In fact, there is a very interesting book, The Laws of the Supercosmic World or something like that. It's about two Parsi boys who had an accident, and they both died in a car accident, and they were there, and they were giving guidance of the upper worlds to their mother, and the whole book is about that. So they can live permanently there if they want to. But if you want to come down, there are so many interesting cases. There is one case where a lady, very attached to her children, okay, had an accident and died and went up. Immediately, without any time, she went up. And she said, where am I? I was there in the world, but this is all different world. Then they told her that this is not your body, this is the super. No, I don't want to be here, I want to go down to my children. So it depends on each individual. And she said, now you can't go down, you don't have a body, you can't go down. How will you go down? Then she insisted. And finally she was able to come down because the body had not yet been disposed of. So she could come down. She preferred rather to be in the physical world with the children than that. So there is a choice. That's what I'm saying. Note, interestingly, our Benjamin here. Benjamin was a gentleman, he was a Tamilian, but he was a French Tamilian. Okay, so he was not anglicized, but he was Frenchisized, if you want. Okay, so he was in charge of cycles. The ashram had only 6 cycles then. So he used to take permission and use the cycle. He used to make beddings, pillows, caps, and things like that. That he was in charge of that. But when he died, he didn't know that he is dead. And he used to come to mother all the time and complain. Why are they changing my room? Why are they changing everything, arrangements? I don't like that. Why are they doing that? So mother had to tell him very gently and very quietly, you are not in the physical world anymore. And she had to break it. You don't have a body to go back to. It's there in the agenda, very interesting.
But then where is the choice that one makes to go back into the body?
It depends on the soul and its decision. The soul is free.
Yes,
it can choose what it wants.
Yes.
Okay. So now we use the word cataclysmic. A sudden violent change in the earth's surface, destruction of the worlds below him. And there's a footnote also. We'll read the footnote. Oh, from the Gita. Okay.
Yes, says Gita.
Because the world is real, and when you go there, the world has disappeared, destroyed completely. That's why I use the word cataclysmic. Destruction of the world is below him. But the solution to this problem, the solution of this problem cannot be satisfactorily pursued and reached on the basis of the examination of words and ideas or a dialectical discussion. It must be the result of a total observation and penetration of the relevant facts of consciousness, both those of the surface and those below or above the surface level or behind our frontal surface, and a successful fathoming of their significance. So here he has given a very clear indication that consciousness is something infinite. Man's consciousness is a very small section, a very small section of the entire consciousness. There is something below him, the subconscious and the inconscient. There is something inside him, horizontally, the intraconscient or the subliminal being. There is something above him, that's the superconscient and the transcendent. And there is something all around. The universe also is consciousness. He calls it the circumconscient consciousness. So he has to examine all and see what is there. That's what he's saying. He's saying, must be the result of a total observation and penetration. Not only observe, but go into, of the relevant facts of consciousness, both those of the surface and those below or above our surface level or behind our frontal surface, and a successful fathoming of their significance. So now you can see that when you go down into your subconscious, what happens? He will examine all these things. When you go into your intraconscious, what happens? When you go into your superconscious, what happens? So all very, very interesting phenomena come up. Remembrance of past lives, the fact of multiple personality, all these questions will come up when he examines the consciousness. So it's a big discussion. It's not just what he's saying, examination of words and ideas on a dialectical discussion. That won't do. You have to actually experience and then see what he's saying. See how thorough Sayadaw is. Absolutely nothing, no leaving to chance. Not only observe, but go into it and see what is nature. Okay, we go to the next.
Yes.
For the dialectical intellect is not a sufficient judge of essential or spiritual truths. Moreover, very often, by its propensity to deal with words and abstract ideas as if they were binding realities, it wears them as chains and does not look freely beyond them to the essential and total facts of our existence. Clear? When we are dealing only with words, then you are not seeing the reality, you are only seeing a representation, and you are binding yourself down with them. That's what he's saying. It wears them as chains and does not look freely beyond them to the essential and total facts of our existence. Intellectual statement is an account to our intelligence and a justification by reasoning of the seeing of things which pre-exists in our turn of mind or temperament or in some tendency of our nature, and secretly predetermines the very reasoning that claims to lead to it. Okay. Predetermination, that means you go with fixed ideas. You have to get rid of the fixed ideas and go to the essence. That reasoning itself can be conclusive only if the perception of things on which it rests is both a true and whole seeing. What are the instruments of knowledge that you are seeing? So if the instruments of knowledge are perfect, fine. But if the instruments of knowledge are not perfect, you are not seeing the reality. I read that again. That reasoning itself can be conclusive only if the perception of things, what are the instruments you are using to see the truth? Okay? On which it rests is both a true and whole seeing. And in the physical world, it is not a whole seeing. Here, what we have to see truly and integrally is the nature and validity of our consciousness, the origin and scope of our mentality. For then alone can we know the truth of our being and nature, truth of our being and nature. Nature is outside us, and of the world being and world nature. Not only being and nature, but also world being and world nature. World existence and world nature. You can work out for yourself the difference between world being and world nature. Okay. In man, the being is the soul, and the world, the nature is your body, mind, life. So therefore, world being means the existence of God in subtle form. That's what it means, obviously. Because if you take it from human level to that level, world, there is a divine presence in the universe. That's the world being. And world nature would be matter, life, mind. Because our nature is body, mind, life. So in the universe, it would be matter, life and mind. See, the words, he is using only words. So what does he mean by those words, we have to see. Okay, so our principle in such an inquiry must be to see and know And now he's using the word see, we have to actually stress it. See not the superficial aspects, but the essence. Our principle, that means what I say is that we should see actually and try to understand it. Okay, so our principle in such an inquiry must be to see and know. The dialectical intellect is to be used only so far as it helps to clarify our arrangement and justify our expression of the vision and the knowledge. You have seen the vision, now intellect comes in if you want to give as perfect a picture of your vision in words. So there you have to use your intellect.
But if you don't see the vision,
then your question doesn't even arise.
so just a question. Is it important for people to read the Life Divine and just read words without any understanding?
Of course.
Why?
They are all doing that. They are only seeing the words and trying to understand intellectually. It's not the experience.
No, but is there any experience just to read words without any understanding?
Understanding intellectually?
So exactly. They just keep going on and on.
You mean like Savitri? When
yes.
you read Savitri without understanding, you're just, and the vibrations you feel, that's what you mean?
Mother says they enter into you, but not into the mind.
Yeah, okay. In that case, you have to make a difference between Savitri and Life Divine. Savitri is mantric.
Yes.
There is a content of magical sound in Savitri.
Yes.
There may not be any magical sound here. It may be intellectual essence, but that's different.
Important. Yes.
What we are reading is only we are using the intellect to understand. It does help, but the real thing is the experience and not the mental understanding. So, our principle in such an inquiry must be to see and know the dialectical intellect. Dialectical means which compares one and the opposite. In fact, I recommend that when we are reading Sri Aurobindo also, to understand some of his statements, read the opposite statement. Then you will understand what he is saying. Because it seems a very bland and very ordinary statement. But when you think of the opposite, then you see the importance of what he is saying. So dialectical method means exactly that. You put your view forward, I put my opposite view forward, there is a discussion and then you come to a conclusion. It cannot be allowed. Our arrangement justify our expression of the vision and the knowledge. But it cannot be allowed. What is it? Intellect. The intellect cannot be allowed to govern our conceptions and exclude truth that does not fall within the rigid frame of its logic. You have to go beyond words and beyond your intellect. Illusion, knowledge and ignorance are terms or results of our consciousness, and it is only by looking deeply into our consciousness that we can discover and determine the character and relations of the knowledge and the ignorance or of the illusion. If you want to interpret ignorance as illusion, you will have to look at both and examine their relations. Or of the illusion, if it exists, and the reality. So he is saying, you are free to choose knowledge and ignorance, look at them carefully, or if you think that they are the opposite, that also you can see. He is saying, or the illusion, if it exists, parenthetical, and the reality. So, being is no doubt the fundamental object of inquiry, things in themselves and things in their nature. But it is only through consciousness that we can approach being. Now, what do they mean by being? There is an essentiality and there is a nature. So, the being is the existence, also uses the word once. Remember that the soul also is a substance. Don't think that the soul is airy-fairy, it's a substance. And what is the nature of that substance? It is conscious. And what is the nature of its substance? It is always in bliss and it has got power. So, being is the essential being and its nature. It's got nature. Like being would be our soul and the body, mind, life would be the nature, its expression. Okay. So, being is no doubt the fundamental object of inquiry. Things in themselves and things in their nature. There you are. Things in themselves. What is the essential character, essence of the thing and their nature? Okay. Or if you want to put it in the soul and the body, mind, life. That becomes very clear. Being and nature. Purusha Prakriti. Or if it be maintained that we can only reach being, enter into the real because it is superconscient through extinction or transcendence of consciousness or through its self-transcendence and self-transformation, it is still through consciousness that we must arrive at the knowledge of this necessity and the process or power of execution of this extinction or this self-transcendence, this transformation. Then, it's very complex what he is saying.
Yes.
Then, through consciousness, to know of the superconscious truth becomes the supreme need, and to discover the power and process of consciousness by which it can pass into superconscious, the supreme discovery. This last sentence is quite a, let's look at what he is saying. You have to use your imagination. So, first he is saying, being is no doubt the fundamental object of inquiry. What are we trying to understand? The essential reality of whatever is there. Okay. In the physical world, it is matter. The forms and its activity and all that is nature. So, we are trying to find out the actual reality. How do you do that? With consciousness. Or can you approach the reality without the consciousness? That's the implication. Being is no doubt a fundamental object of inquiry, things in themselves and things in their nature. But it is only through consciousness that we can approach being. Or, if it be maintained that we can only reach being, enter into the real because it is superconscient. In other words, with your consciousness you can't get it, you have to go beyond consciousness. It goes to the superconscient. It's not consciousness anymore. There are so many levels, no? It's a question of what words you are using. Or if it be maintained, where is it gone? Yeah. Or if it be maintained that we can only reach being, the essence, enter into the real because it is superconscient through extinction or transcendence of consciousness. I have to lose my consciousness of the mind to be able to understand the reality. And I have to lose even the spiritual consciousness to know the ultimate reality. Why? I become the divine. Identity. There is the, again we come back to the conception of the percept, the perceiver and the consciousness linking them. So what he is discussing here is there a consciousness by which I can know this? That's one way of looking at it. Or another way is, no, with consciousness you cannot. Then it becomes, you enter into it, knowledge by identity. You become, consciousness is nowhere there. You become what you want to know. Clear? So, we come back to the idea of the different types of knowledge. Okay? There is a whole paragraph where it discusses this. There are 4 types of knowledge. Okay. In the physical world, I am going a little beyond to explain this passage, what it means by consciousness. In the physical world, I am using indirect separative knowledge. I'll explain. Indirect, because between you and me, senses are there. If the senses are not there, I can never know you. So in the physical world, the character of knowledge is indirect, separative. You are separate from me. And I am using my senses to know you, so senses are there. If the senses are not there, I cannot know you. This is the first type of knowledge. The second type of knowledge is direct, without senses. Okay? Direct knowledge. But when I am looking at you, I don't need to use my senses. I am looking beyond my senses, I am seeing your soul, I am understanding you. But you are you and I am I. Separate. Then the third type of knowledge, which is the real knowledge, is no separation at all. Direct, non-separative knowledge. Identity.
Identity.
I become what? But Sri Aurobindo says there are four, and the third one, he says, is knowledge by identity in a diminished and reduced manner. Now you can understand what he's saying now here. Okay? So, I am reading that again. With this background, you will be able to understand what he's saying. Being is no doubt the fundamental object of inquiry. I want to know the reality. Things in themselves, not things in their outer form and outer nature. I want to know what it is. Okay? So, for instance, I am looking at a chair and I am seeing only the form. I don't want to see the form, I want to see the real thing. Or if I am eating something sweet or sour, I am not interested in the sourness or the sweetness. I want to know what it is, the being and its characteristics. So, that is possible by consciousness, or is it not? That is what he is saying. It can be maintained that you can never know something by consciousness, because it is always separative. So, the four types of knowledge that I gave you, now it becomes very clear. Okay? Or if it maintains that we can only reach being, enter into the real, because it is superconscient, through extinction or transcendence of consciousness. What it means is transcendence of, there is a sense consciousness, there is a mental consciousness, there is a spiritual consciousness, and there is consciousness disappears and you become what you want to know. That is what he is discussing. Okay? It is still through consciousness that we must arrive at knowledge of this necessity, and the process or power of execution of this extinction or this self-transcendence. You go beyond your own consciousness, this transformation. Then, through consciousness, to know of the superconscious truth becomes the supreme need, and to discover the power and process of consciousness by which it will pass into superconsciousness. So, what he means is that consciousness has to go into superconsciousness. Again, we come back to the idea of inconscient, subconscient, conscient, spiritual consciousness, ultimate truth, no consciousness at all, not necessary.
Wonderful.
To know of the superconscious becomes supreme need, and to discover the power and process of consciousness by which it can pass into superconscious, the supreme discovery. At the highest level, you don't need knowledge, that also we discussed. You don't need knowledge, because the knower and the known have become one. Knowledge doesn't exist there. You have yourself become the origin. I think we have to stop here today.
Yes.
Sri Aurobindo is looking at the truth and speaking, and we have to imagine very hard what he is saying and make a picture of what he is saying.
Namaste all. And we will see you next week, page 511, the last paragraph, beginning, but in ourselves, consciousness seems to be identical with mind.